Skull and Bones showcase. They just did this an hour ago. Let's see why they delayed it. Maybe they'll answer it.
Hello everyone and welcome back to The Deck. It's been a while and we know that some of you have been eagerly waiting for a chance to play our game. We're working very hard to make that happen as soon as possible, but in the meantime, I brought a special guest to introduce you all to an aspect of Skull and Bones we haven't talked much about yet, which is our narrative and how it works. In just a minute, we'll be taking you through about 40 minutes of exclusive gameplay, which we just recorded in our studio. But before that, let me introduce you all to our world context with this short trailer.
The end of the 17th century, when ruthless corporations ruled the seas with an iron fist. They ignited a battle for global supremacy to dominate the world's most valuable trade routes. A flood of exotic goods from the Indian Ocean stormed the West, creating new addictions and a violent race for control. And where there's blood, there are predators. Labelled as enemies of all mankind, this new breed of pirates will show no mercy. Sailing through dangerous waters, they created secret trading networks and built their pirate empires. But they were always on the edge of losing it all and sinking to the depths as Skull and Bones.
Already, that seems way more coherent than like a vision for the game than anything we've heard before. So I mean, I'd say that sounds decent, but it's a CGI trailer. Like there's not much to take from it.
All right, welcome back. I hope you all enjoyed this little introduction to our world context. I'm here today with Joel. Hi, Joel.
Hi, Alexi.
So Joel is our narrative director. He works on everything narrative for Skull and Bones. And today we're going to be showing you a bit of that. So can you tell us a little bit more about what we're going to show today, Joel?
Yeah, we're going to play an investigation, Alexi. And so investigations in Skull and Bones are really a way to tell a story through a series of steps. The player kind of follows a trail of something that they think is going to be interesting and likely going to lead to some kind of treasure or some kind of score. But it also tells a story about our factions and our world. And we do that by finding, for example, messages in bottles, scraps of lost journals, sometimes talking to different characters in the world. And through that, we were able to tell a story.
All right, cool. So I'm going to pick up the first clue of this investigation. I'm going to read it out and then we'll find out a bit more. We'll talk about it a little bit together.
Sure.
All hail Queen Alice for the mighty victory over our treasonous brother and King Wenye. The throne of great Ukuta is now fortified against foreign invaders, and our alliance with the Sultanate of Soha help ensure the prosperity of the Confederation of Ungwana. The Queen shall award a bountiful sum for information on the capture of renegade rightful. By royal decree, all heirs and avatars shall be killed. Her Majesty!
Basically, what's happening there is a little bit of a fight between brother and sister. Both of them believe that they're the rightful heir to the throne. But the brother basically ran away with the crown, right? So for us as pirates, we're not really interested in taking sides. We're not really interested in who's right or who's wrong. What we are interested in, however, is the mention of that crown and potential treasure waiting for us.
Of course.
Right?
Of course.
So what we're going to do first, the first clue is basically telling us that we need to find out where the brother went. He's been sighted in the Bandari settlement, so we're going to be sailing towards that destination. But before we do that, maybe you can tell us a little bit about the region we're in and how does it fit with our world context?
Well, so in the world context, this is the golden age of piracy. And so
It does look beautiful. I'll give him that. It looks really good. The common frustration I think people have had is that, for one, there's been no mention of I guess, boarding during naval combat. The only combat is from ship to ship, and that's frustrated people. But you can run around off like on shore when you get off your ship, and so I don't know how big of a deal that is, but we'll see. I mean, maybe they're addressing it. Maybe that's something they're trying to add. I don't know.
This game is a historical fiction, and so we're really basing a lot of our choices in the game on being inspired by the region of the Indian Ocean and the factions that can be found there at that time. And during this time period, there is a desire from the West for all the luxurious goods that were discovered here by the West, discovered from their point of view, and there was a kind of a battle for who would have supremacy over those goods. And of course, that also leads to battles with the local factions, and it's really the mega corporations from the West stealing from the local factions to feed those new addictions in the West.
Cool.
And so there we see the dawn of the modern economy. Yeah.
All right, very cool. Nice.
Buckle up for the cringe takes on, oh God, Ubisoft making another game about the mega corporations and stuff. And like, yeah, they are. I don't know if that qualifies as cringe. Like, you're talking about the East India Trading Company. Like, for people who don't know about human history, like, it was a company that literally employed 1/3 of the Earth's population. 1/3 of everyone on Earth was reporting to this one company. So I think it's fair for them to say mega corporations. Okay, I think that's fair.
Little introduction there. So because we know where we're going, it's a bit of a distance to sail. So I've now traveled to another outpost, and maybe you can tell us a bit more about the role of outposts in the game.
Yeah, so outposts are really places to explore, find lore. From a narrative point of view, there's always lore to be found in outposts, but more than that, there are also places to trade, to pick up contracts, to cash in contracts, to sometimes pay off factions if you have an aggro with a specific faction.
It's also a place you can kind of meet other players and socialize with other players as well, right?
Of course.
Damn, fully multiplayer.
So I want to give like a little bit of slack to this guy. Like, I know I see the thing, like, not even this guy's excited for this game. Like, yeah, I get it. He has a very monotone way of speaking. Some people are just like that. Like, some people talk in a more monotone way. One of the great things that I think like Warner Brothers has done with the Harry Potter game is that they've put people who are extremely excited about it front and center. So just their energy is like very much intoxicating, and it affects you too. And that's no accident. You know, they know what they're doing by doing that. I would say, like, for this, it just seems to be an issue with the marketing department if they are telling, like, these guys that this is a good take. If I were them, I would be like, okay, guys, we're going to restart. We're going to do this. And I need you to take, like, 3 Red Bulls and shotgun them. I need energy. I need energy, because this is just dragging. If you say, and this is also a social hub where people can socialize, is that right? Yes. All right, where else are we going in the game? Like, I get that you're chill. That's cool. I would like working with you because you're so chill. But when you're trying to sell somebody a product, you have to come in and be like, oh my God, that's awesome. Okay, what are we doing next? What's the next thing? You've got to come with some energy, you know? Like, something. And so I don't necessarily fault these guys. I more blame the people that are in charge of producing this video, that this is coming off so monotone. Because if I were even slightly involved in the production of this video, if Ubisoft called me and said, hey, listen, can you help us produce like some promotional content for Skull and Bones? I'd be like, sure, let me help you. And it's going to be, okay, cut, we're restarting, we need energy. You've got to be excited about it. If you're not excited about this, why should the audience be? Why should your customers be? You've got to come in here and be pumped. Come on.
Cool. So now we know that our next destination is going to be that Bannery settlement. I'm going to talk about it a bit later as we get closer to it. But our objective is going to be to plunder that settlement to find the next clue, right?
Yes.
But for now, as we're sailing, maybe there's more you can tell us about the exact region we're in and the regions of Skull and Bones in general.
Yeah, so we're in the coast of Africa region here, and as you can see from the landscape, it's a bit of a arid landscape compared to some of the others in the game. And here, there's two major factions. There's the Confederation of Iguana, who are really more the local faction who have historically been here, and they're a nomadic faction and quite aggressive faction in terms of the game. But the thing about the people from the Confederation of Iguana is that they're nomadic partially by circumstances, and the part of those circumstances is the fact that the Company Royale has moved into the location, and the Company Royale is really a mega corporation from France, and they're the colonial power who has disrupted the lives of the Confederation of Iguana. And there's a whole backstory and quite a bit of lore that can build up that sort of relationship.
Yeah, so one of the cool things about all this as well is that as we're sailing through and we see other ships passing us, the more you play the game, the more you find out that these ships actually have a lot of elements on them that are giving you information, right? First of all, you can see the equipments they have. So the ships we just passed, for example, they were equipped with a lot of cargo.
Thank you,
but
right?
Also
Thank
the
you.
sails and the
Rari2XX donated $5 through Super Chat. You're the only person I've seen give actual critiques properly. I agree in regards to being skeptic of Hogwarts. You think there's some more positives.
Yeah, no, and I agree. And that's exactly where I'm at. I think it's frustrating for more skeptically minded people like you and me, because we will look at something like Hogwarts Legacy or Skull and Bones, and we can point out a lot of issues, a lot of concerns. That doesn't mean that we think the game is going to be awful. It doesn't mean we're not excited for it. It just means, yeah, there's some problems. And here they are. But there's also positives. And so, like, looking at Skull and Bones, I can say this looks beautiful. And they've got some amazing weather tech and some water tech. And clearly they've taken their time with it. They're trying to restart it into something that works. The game's changed its outlook many times. And like Sea of Thieves has shown that this type of game can be very fun and very successful with friends. And so, like, there's a lot of good things too, to the negatives. But some people just seriously do not understand that way of thinking and really do see it as just you raining on their parade. Like, they don't see it as anything less than you being a negative Nancy and trying to upset them. Which is, you know, fine, but I really think that it's mostly just tied up in how I don't blame those people. I more blame the average content creator, because let's just say even slightly intelligent takes on the gaming industry are fairly rare nowadays. Nowadays, the extent of gaming critiques and content is like I Show Speed, or you know, what's his name? Jacksepticeye screaming about something and giggling about it. Like, it's fun, it's entertaining, I get it. But it's not about like trying to have a thoughtful discussion on a game. It's about being entertaining first and foremost. And I get it. That's why they have huge channels and are very, very successful and very, very wealthy. But I think that we could all benefit from a little bit more sophistication, you know. Please shout out Black Flag. Oh yeah, no, I did too. I love Black Flag, and if this even taps into it slightly, I'm down.
The emblems they have will tell you which faction do they belong to and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, of course. So there's visual identifiers. You know, there's all kinds of things that really help bring authenticity to the different factions in the game, whether it's visual, linguistic, you name it.
So a lot of work went into like making sure that when you're sailing through the coast of Africa, you feel that you're actually on the coast of Africa.
Absolutely.
There's also a lot of other elements like the wildlife, the vegetation, all of these things that make you really feel like you are actually sailing the coast of Africa, which is very nice.
Yeah, and if you want,
Which is very nice. I get your chill, dude, but like, come on. If I did this in like my high school theater class, or even, let's be real, like one of those high school courses on public speaking, I would have flunked. And I'm sure you're a very nice guy and you're very good as a community manager, but like your job right now in this video is to sell some very skeptical people and critical and even potentially cynical people on this game that's had so much trouble and so many problems. And this just ain't gonna do it, because this comes off as like I've had dentists while they're working in my mouth show more energy than this. At least they seemed like moderately excited because they were like taking all of my money.
There is wildlife in the waters that you can be hunted by players, but not with the ships that we're sailing right now. Of course, you know, Skull and Bones has all different kinds of ships, and you're encouraged to use those different ships in different ways. Some are better for combat, some are better for fast navigation, some for carrying large loads. And of course, there are very small ships that can go through narrow waterways and are useful for...
What ship do you have that will carry the biggest load? Like just a crazy big load. Like imagine a big load and double it. I need a ship that can carry that. What ship would that be?
Essentially hunting water-based animals, and so that is an opportunity that we could explore in the coast of Africa, but because I think we're trying to complete our investigation, we'll have to do that next time.
So I know that there's actually a lot of rivers to explore. Luckily for us, the rivers we're in now are large enough for us to sail with those rather large ships.
Yep.
But like you said, like some rivers, you're gonna have to basically switch to a smaller ship, which might not be as well equipped. But that'll be the only way to get some of the resources that the region has to offer, right?
Yep. And so it pays to have a varied fleet of ships, it's fair to say.
Yes. All right, so we're going to get closer to that settlement in just a little bit. There's a couple of information that we need to keep in mind when we get closer. First of all, so far nobody's really bothering about us because we're just not being very aggressive, right? But the moment we attack the settlement, that's going to change, obviously.
Yeah.
That settlement belongs to the local faction. But we're not here to actually plunder any resources. We're here to find the clue. So what we're going to do before we start the plundering is we are going to plan our escape route to make sure that we don't get into too much trouble.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm almost there now. But essentially, yeah, that's the key thing about Skull and Bones when you want to engage the combat. Depending on your objective, you want to make sure you're prepared for it. So if you want to plunder all the way, then you need to make sure you're ready for a long fight. On the other hand, if you're just looking for one specific item, then you want to plan an escape and you want to make sure that you can run away without getting too much heat. Because the way the plunder feature works is that the longer the fight goes on, the harder it gets, the more there's going to be reinforcements, and the more aggressive these reinforcements are going to get.
But if I've learned anything playing the game, things will go wrong. So, so let's see what can happen.
So hopefully we'll make it alive. Alright, so I'm going to drop anchor now, open up my map, and I'm going to set my escape route for that shipwreck on the far east. And whenever we're ready, let's get started.
I'm ready.
Alright, let's go.
Let's do this.
Order your raiders to disembark into a settlement to plunder its riches. Remain close to the settlement to be ready to collect your loot and receive your raiders. Hold Y to start plunder. So your NPCs can raid stuff, but you can't.
So as you can see here, a bunch of our crew are jumping overboard to essentially enter the settlement and begin the plundering action. And so the fantasy here is as we're out here fighting and holding our ground, they're in the settlement scampering around, you know, stealing whatever they can get their hands on and looking for the thing that in this case we're looking for, which is the next clue in our investigation. And as you can see, those different stops across the top of the screen of what will happen during the plundering action if we survive is they will start sending out what they find while our crew is in there on small ships for us to pick up. So if they do their job right, we will get our clue in the first package, and then we can make our escape. Obviously, the longer the battle goes on, the more at risk we're at here in this kind of confined space.
Yeah, but that's also how you get the highest rewards, right?
Exactly. So if you can stick it out all the way to the end, of course you're going to plunder a heck of a lot, but as you can see here, we are facing stiff competition.
Yeah, so my strategy usually when we plunder settlement is the beginning's pretty chill, I want to say, all things considered.
Yep.
So what I try to do is I try to damage the tower first before all the big reinforcements come in, but in that case we're getting a lot of heat from those flamethrowers.
Yes,
so
it's not super chill at the moment, it turns out. And
okay, let's hope I don't need it.
I see that you're taking some heavy hits from the tower.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like, depending on the enemy you're facing, obviously you can see that there's different weak spots you can hit for extra damage, but they're also going to have different kind of weapons who might inflict different kind of damage on your ship, so you need to be kind of prepared for that as well.
Damn it.
Yes. Having a well-rounded strategy never hurts because, as we mentioned, things will go wrong.
Yes.
And it is quite chaotic at the moment.
Right.
But
I think we're almost there. Yeah, I just got the clue, so now we can run away
let's do it.
before all the big trouble comes.
So here's the thing, like, people are going to look at this and be like, okay, so like they can't even have you go and help fight on land. That sucks. They cut this stuff. Like, I get the vibe. I get it. I understand it. However, I think it's important to note that this is not supposed to be Black Flag 2. And I think that a lot of people are treating it as though like that's what it is. And that's just not the case. Like, this is supposed to be its own thing. It's not supposed to be Assassin's Creed. It's not supposed to be about third-person exploration on land or combat on land. It's supposed to be a game where you sail ships and loot stuff and live life like a pirate. It's supposed to be a pirate game. And so I think that there's some perhaps unreasonable expectations tied up in this. Which, I mean, it's really just, it's more a reflection of the studio. This is coming from Ubisoft. Ubisoft previously did a very well-received pirate game where you could go on land and fight and pillage and do stuff like that. And now they're offering a game that's very, very similar 10 years later where you can't do any of that stuff. And that just feels like a downgrade, even though it really isn't. You know? Yeah, no hand-to-hand is a huge misstep on their part. This is going to be a tough sell. That's the thing is, I'm not sure. The people who are really into like Sea of Thieves, I think are still going to jump into this. There's a lot of people who want pirate games, who love the pirate setting. And they might not actually care. Like, they might still be down for this. Because, like, I don't want to just assume that everybody thinks exactly the same way that I do. For me, like, if they're charging full price for this, that's a really tough sell. This as a Game Pass title, I think is a good offering. I think that this could be very successful on Game Pass. But I don't think it's a game that probably pops off day one. If anything, this is a game that probably launches to pretty mediocre reviews and tough reception. And then over time, people start giving it a shot. Gets on Game Pass. They start really having fun with it. But it's going to take a little while. Because people just already have such a poor view of this game.
Perfect.
If you just follow me, I know where we're going.
TB, I think people know this, but it's not appealing. It's a pirate ship combat simulator. Yeah. And that's the thing is, I think people at this point are so committed to just hating on it that they will complain about whatever they can, including saying like, oh, well, no, it doesn't even have raiding and you can't even board enemy ships. You have to send your teams to do it. Like, to put it in perspective, just make it anybody, like any other developer. Say that this was coming from an indie studio. This would look freaking badass from an indie studio that you had never heard of. If I told you this is a new game from Asobo studio, you'd be like, hell yeah, this looks awesome. This is crazy. But because it's Ubisoft, people have different expectations. And yeah, they wouldn't charge $70. Well, and that's what we're agreed on. Regardless of who's making this, regardless of what's present and what's not, $70 is freaking steep. They need like a Game Pass offering. And more than anything, I think it's because the perception's so negative right now. They need to come in and offer like Game Pass, because there's going to be a lot of people who might be interested in this but are not going to buy it or try it simply because they know it's been delayed 6 times. And they know that games that are delayed that much are often not that great. But I mean, this is not selling me on it. More than anything, like they needed to go in there with a shock baton or something to wake these guys up. Like Joel, again, strikes me as a very nice guy. Alexis, very nice guy. I'm sure they're very good at what they do as well. I mean, come on, they're in senior positions within a big corporation. Like, they probably have worked their butts off to get there. But we need energy. Like, we gotta have energy. People are so negative right now. You gotta get in there. Be like, oh yeah, let's go. Boom, boom, boom. Like, you need the Joseph Fares. You need that guy on your team to do these showcases. To come on here and be like, it's fuck the Oscars, man. This is gonna be awesome. Like, you gotta have that guy.
Okay.
All right, so like you can see on the screen, we're leaving the plunder area now. So that means any potential loot, extra loot that we could have gotten, will be forfeited at this point.
Oh boy.
But we don't care because we have what we need.
Yeah, our escape is not yet guaranteed, though.
Yes.
That's fair to say.
We're getting there.
And there's, like you were saying before, there's the Company Royale fighting here with local factions, so you can see some of that conflict happening right here.
Yeah, and that's part of the living world of Skull and Bones. And in this case, I think it's going to work to our advantage here because the Confederation of Iguana is going to be sort of torn about who to aggro more, us or the Company Royale.
Mm-hmm. Alright, so far so good. I'm going to use a repair kit just to fix my ship a little bit.
Yep.
I've seen better days. How's it looking for you? Are you able to make it out alive?
Yeah, I'm going to be okay.
One major frustration, Lego, to all the Lego employees watching this, the countless members. Oh, that's 25. That's not even 15. Your booklets always say 1 bag, but sometimes 15 is actually 2 different bags labeled 15. So I don't know to keep digging through the box to find the other 15 or not, because sometimes it's 1 bag, sometimes it's 2. It's really annoying. Do better. Do better.
I'm kind of running close to this Company Royale ship, so I'm going to be curious to see. They don't seem to have any issue with us, but hopefully... Oh, yeah. Yep, so they're under attack from the Confederation of Iguana, which is great news.
Cool.
Because that means I'm getting away.
It's quite ironic that we're being saved by the same people that we just attacked.
Yes.
But I think it's looking good, man. At least on my side, it's looking like it's gonna get quiet soon.
Nice. Passing a shipwreck here.
Yeah, there's a lot of flamethrower action behind you. Alright, so I'm gonna drop anchor around here, and I'm gonna start reading the next clue.
Yeah, it is an MMO is what I understand. Yes, Nave.
King Wenye has landed in Bandari Harbor.
They're gonna play the whole thing.
Queen is... and brother is not looking good, to be honest. Looks like they still... they can't find an agreement, basically.
Yeah.
So King Winnie ran away with the crown. The queen... well, the sister queen is basically destined to rule without a crown. But for our interest, we've been told to look for the next clue at a shipwreck next to Jiwe. So that's where we're going to sail now.
All right.
The other thing I noticed while I was reading the clue is that there's actually some graphics that you can display that shows the clue written in a language that I don't really understand or can't read. So maybe you can tell
Thank
us
you,
more about
Matthew.
this.
Yeah, I mean, we are obviously inspired by the...
Matthew Marceau donated $4.99 through Super Chat.
Thank you.
Loving the streams, my man. Rebuilding my Skywalker Red 5 set this afternoon.
Oh, sweet.
Trying to not overhype myself for Hogwarts Legacy, but it's not easy.
Yeah, I totally get that, and I don't want to fault anybody for being excited, and I think that was the one thing I saw a lot of people saying in response to my video is they felt like I was saying that if you are excited, then there's something wrong with you, then you're not thinking or you're not smart. And no, like, I'm excited for it just as much. Like that, and that's the thing, is I'm just as excited. The only thing is I am trying hard not to get to the point where I'm so hyped up that if it's got problems, I am not devastated. Because history has shown that, that no studio is perfect, no game is perfect. And so as long as expectations are reasonable, you're fine. It's just trying to make sure that we match those up so that people aren't devastated. But all told, I mean, just the transparency of doing all these showcases that they've done is very, very good. I mean, they're inviting YouTubers to come out and see the game and the studios and stuff. That's pretty cool. That YouTuber Expecto Go, he was in the first showcase sitting on the couch with them. And like they invited him and he got to meet the studio, some of the devs and stuff. Like that level of transparency is very uncommon for games that end up having problems. Now, games can still have problems and do showcases and talk with influencers and stuff. Cyberpunk famously sent out care packages, free chairs and stuff to influencers. But I would say that Cyberpunk was such a huge deal because that type of thing happens very, very rarely. Normally, that type of thing is a very good sign. Normally. So, all told, like, I think it's perfectly justified to be very excited for Hogwarts Legacy. I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all.
The people of the region, and so we've worked really closely with historians.
And also, good luck rebuilding that. That sounds awesome.
As well as language and culture experts.
Fabio, what do you think of the whole transphobic discourse? I think that's a very good question. For one, I will say I don't think people really care about my opinion. I'm just a YouTuber. Like I make games, or I make videos on video games. Like, why would anybody think that I have like an important or informative opinion on such an important topic? So for one, I just think like I'm not the one to really discuss it. What I know is that my audience is extremely excited for the game and is going to be very interested in my opinion of the game because I have opinions on games. So I'm going to cover it for sake of those fans. As for the broader topic, I think it is a little bit of a stretch to try and connect that a consumer is a bad person for consuming a piece of content that's related to somebody who has said things that you disagree with or find distasteful. And so I would say I think that can be a bit of a stretch, just because then you start to very quickly dismiss all sorts of things in your day-to-day life. Like all of a sudden you can't drive a Volkswagen, you can't buy a shirt from Hugo Boss, you're not going to be eating most foods because they might have been grown, like parts of the food might have been grown by Monsanto, who also previously produced Agent Orange in Vietnam that caused horrible pain and misery for countless people. So like you start to fail to exist in society pretty quickly if you start to play that game. And so I just don't think it works practically. I think if you want to, like, I won't say you're a bad person or that you're wrong if you choose to boycott it or something, you know, that's your prerogative, that's your right. I would encourage you, if you're going to do that, spend the $70 you would have spent and donate it to a charity or a cause that you support, so that a net positive comes out of it, instead of just you throwing a tantrum, because that seems to be most of the complaints. Seems to be a lot of that. Johnny, thank you for the £1. Appreciate you. Thank you. Let's see. There's a difference between subjective and objective. Yeah, no, for sure. I've played a lot of Sea of Thieves, 100+ hours, and every pirate legend in Sea of Thieves hates quests like the one being shown, usually super tedious. I hope the rewards are good to make these quests worth it. Yeah, I mean, the one thing is they're encouraging you to build your own fleet of ships so you can have variations, and I think that that's something that actually could be really cool in the long term. Like, imagine you have 5 different ships for all different use cases. That's cool. I like that. How that ties in, you know, it's going to be tricky to see, but I think that could be something that's unique and cool. Whereas Sea of Thieves, you know, you load in, do you want the big ship, the medium ship, or the little ship? And then you can swap out any cosmetics you want. Whereas in this, it's like, no, that's your ship. You have that ship. The other players don't have that ship. You know, I kind of like that differentiation. So how many hours would I need for 5 ships? I don't know. What's transphobic discourse? Basically, JM, it's just that the author of Harry Potter, J.K. Rowling, is a TERF, which is her term. It's trans exclusionary radical feminist. So she thinks that trans women should not be considered women for sake of feminist issues because they haven't lived the same experience as women. So they should be a different group. So, you know, her stance is that trans issues are trans issues, women's issues are women's issues. You shouldn't try to lump them together. That's her stance. And so people say that as a result, you should boycott Hogwarts Legacy.
To make sure that we're being accurate and being taking that inspiration as far as we can in terms of showing the authenticity that comes from the.
This is the tedious part. This is going to turn into the side of the ship, like that's going to cover this entire sidewall. But I have to cover it with a bunch of these little black pieces that are going to go on, and then hold these even smaller pieces that are like the backpacks for Lego minifigures, and then those face up, and those will hold the smooth edged side railings and panels. So it's a little tedious, this part.
Different factions.
Looks
in this
great when
region,
it's
or
done.
I should say, from portraying the different factions in this region.
And yeah, another thing that I like a lot about, you know, talking about regional factions and regional cultures is the shanties. I'm gonna play one right now, so maybe you can talk to us a bit more about shanties.
The shanties are back.
Yeah, so the way I see it is we really have 3 different types of shanties in the game. Of course, we have your classic pirate shanties that I think people come to expect, myself included. But we also have some language-specific shanties, like we were talking about, some that are not translated and are kept in the language of the local factions, which I think is very cool and really exciting. And in addition to that, we also have certain shanties that are really specific to the world lore of our game. So shanties about the characters in our game, about some of the legendary kingpins, about some of the myths and the overall fantasy of our game.
Nice, very nice.
Nice, very nice, very nice.
So yeah, as we setting a bit, we can enjoy the different sceneries and changing the lighting as we get closer to nighttime. And one thing I like as well when I'm sailing and there's not too much combat or action going on is taking advantage of the different cameras that we have in our game. So we
Yeah,
can really
absolutely. I mean, if you take the time to make your ship look awesome, you want to celebrate it
Exactly.
when you have a moment, you know.
I mean, that's the key thing about a pirate, right? You take pride into making your ship impressive and good looking.
That's a key thing about being a pirate. Showing off that merch. Right? Right? That's the thing. What you building? The Lego Titanic. You can see the remnants, or the first third right there. We are a third of the way through. So now we're building the middle section. Right there. We're on our way.
Looking.
Exactly. You just like your hand is going to be encrusted with rings, you also got to have your ship encrusted with cool stuff.
Yes.
It's one of
And then the other thing that I find are both quite fun, but also very distracting is obviously the world is really big, right? And you set sail thinking, okay, I'm gonna go look for something specific, and then as you set sail, you look around and you see one thing interesting, and if you like me, you'll get tempted to find out what it is, and then you lose focus basically, and you get distracted by other things, and then you forget why you were at sea in the first place.
But that's all right. We're happy to have players get lost in our world. That's part of the goal, and I think that was part of what it was like to be a pirate, was to
I guess so, yeah.
see opportunities and seize them in the
And also, like, you know, rape people. That was a big part of it too. But I doubt that's going to make it into the game.
moment. And so
Yeah, but in our case, we can't get distracted because our time is
Something
limited.
tells me that might not be.
Mission.
Yes, and I'm now arriving to that shipwreck we were looking for. So I'm just gonna get a little closer, drop anchor, and then I'll read the next clue.
great.
All right.
That would be paid DLC. Oh my god. You never know. You never know. And thank you, Tom. Yeah, no, it's coming together. I mean, it's a beautiful set. Almost 10,000 pieces. It's gorgeous. It's just very, I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot to do. It's like a 36-pound Lego set. When it's done, it's like 36 pounds. It's the weight of a small child. Costs almost as much too. They just let this whole thing play out. It's like 3 minutes of talking for the note to read.
Dramatic. Okay, so it looks like the story is taking quite a dramatic turn towards the end. There's a couple of things I've learned from that clue, actually. The first one is, after years of working in that game, I finally found out how to pronounce the how. I didn't know it was pronounced that way. But the other thing is, so like the story said, basically the King Winnie had a very unfortunate encounter. He met a certain Captain Freeman, who then convinced his entire crew to basically abandon him and live free in a place called Lenitra.
Yeah.
So maybe you can tell us more about this Freeman and
Yeah,
Lenitra.
so Captain Freeman is really a mythical character. I like to say he's part of
Oh my god. Okay, it's confirmed. Ubisoft, your marketing team, they gotta go. Do you guys see what I see? Do you guys see what I see that confirms to me that they don't like this? Whoever set this up appears to be a little incompetent. Do you guys see it? I don't blame you if you don't see it, because it's very specific, and you wouldn't know unless you had one of these things. The mic. You're right, TB. The mic. That's an Audio Technica microphone. For those microphones, you don't talk into the top of it. You talk into the front of it. So they have set this up like this, pointed at him. So it's capturing the audio of his left nipple, not his mouth, which is why he sounds so quiet and muffled. It would be like this microphone if I took it and the whole stream, I talked into it like this. Yeah, guys, thanks for coming by. I'm really excited to talk to you about Skull and Bones. I'm glad to be here. You're talking about some pretty basic knowledge of the equipment that you're using. So that doesn't, like, this is a huge red flag for me. I mean, I was already saying if I were involved in the creation of this stuff, I would be telling them to restart, do takes, do all of this. Now it makes sense. They don't even know how to hook up the microphone. And like, let's be fair. Maybe this guy is working remote, or maybe this guy set up the microphone himself and he's not a streamer. He's a narrative guy. He doesn't know how to set up the microphone. I agree. Why would he know how to set up the microphone? It's not his fault, but it is the fault of whoever's in charge of this whole thing, because they should have caught that and been like, no, we got to redo it. We got to swap out mics. We got to fix it. That's a problem. That's a problem. So already it took me a while to notice because I couldn't see the microphone up close, but that's a big red flag. You know,
foundational.
It's, or maybe not a red, it's an oopsie. Like, and it makes me question the capacities and the know-how of the at least the marketing team, but still, like, that's a huge oopsie. Real bad.
Myth of our world. And so Captain Freeman has a story that you're...
And again, to be clear, I'm not blaming this guy. He's a narrative guy. He wouldn't know. Why would he know? You know? So it's not his fault. It's the marketing guy's fault.
Esker Outcome donated
Thank
$9.99
you.
through Super Chat.
It's very generous.
What do you think of the people who say that if you want to play Hogwarts Legacy, you yourself are anti-trans? I support trans people and hate what JKR has become, but HP means so much to me to not play.
Yeah, I think simply Hogwarts Legacy represents the franchise that's been created at this point. And at this point, the franchise has grown well beyond J.K. Rowling. Well beyond her and her influence. And while I guess we have her to thank for the initial conceptualization, the franchise has grown so huge, especially towards the end of the original, like the books and the films. It's grown so huge in spite of her, not because of her. So I don't think that you are a bad person for buying the game and enjoying it and supporting the teams of devs that have worked for years to bring this to you. And I don't think you're a bad person for enjoying that. I don't think you're a bad person for playing Call of Duty, even though there's a history of abuse of employees and horrible managers there at that company. I don't think you're a bad person for that. I don't think you're a bad person if you buy a Volkswagen, even though Volkswagen was created by Nazi sympathizers. I don't think you're a bad person if you wear a NASA shirt, even though many of NASA's engineers were brought over during Operation Paperclip and were former scientists that worked on the rocket systems for the Nazis. Like, I don't think you're a bad person for participating in any of these things that are tangentially related to something bad. I think at some point you have to be able to separate the art from the artist and the product from the inventor. Otherwise, like, society can't function, because pretty soon you'll stop participating in anything. You won't be eating those potatoes on the table because the seeds for those potatoes were created by Monsanto, and Monsanto created like Agent Orange back in Vietnam. Like, so pretty quickly, like, you'll start to just not function in society. R. Kelly's music? Well, R. Kelly's music sucks, so that's an easy one. But I don't think you're a bad person for it, and I'm not going to judge you for it. And also, like, if you want to boycott it because you feel the ethical or moral obligation to do so, more power to you. That's it. More power to you. I think that's noble of you to live out your convictions in that way. I would encourage you to be consistent and apply that same standard to everything in your life, and maybe you do, in which case props to you. But, you know, not everybody can do it. And like I said, I think society starts to crumble once you start having that Puritan outlook. Just nothing functions pretty quickly. So you've got to be able to separate it out.
We're going to put together in the game by doing all these different investigations. You'll get little snippets about Captain Freeman from every investigation to put together a full picture of who he was. And one thing that is known widely is that he was part of what was called at the time, or what we call the heist of the century, meaning that he took part in the biggest score any pirate had ever done in our world by doing a massive score against the Dutch Merchant Company. And so he was one of the also founding members of this sort of pirate den, borderline pirate paradise called Lenitra. And in Lenitra, it was very much an egalitarian, almost democratic society where pirates supported each other, worked together, really began to work against the mega corporations in a quite coordinated way. And it included even some of the other characters that we'll meet in our game. Like one of our major characters, John Skurlock, for example, was an inhabitant of Lenitra. But tragically, Lenitra was destroyed and being attacked by the Company Royale and the DMC, the Dutch Merchant Company, given the events of the heist of the century and some of the other things that Captain Freeman and his ilk got up to. And so really that whole idea of having this like pirate utopia has been destroyed.
Libertalia. Yeah, they're really struggling to keep this exciting
in the mythology of our game. And what we're left with now is a world that is much more cutthroat, much more dog eat dog. It is a much harsher and grittier pirate world than that mythical pirate past that some of the characters in our world can remember.
There's no more safe haven for us to live our life free.
And Freeman himself is sort of a mystery lost to time that hopefully we can learn more about by doing those investigations.
All right, so I know there's a lot more to that story, and we'll probably leave that for players to find out when they finally get to play our game in open beta or launch.
Absolutely.
But one thing I need you to tell me, and I don't know if you can answer that question, was Freeman a good guy or a bad guy?
I think, as far as pirates go, he was a good guy. He did believe in the sort of utopian vision of Lenitra, and he did want to do right by the little guy, so to speak. And his goal was really to take issue with the mega corporations.
Fair enough. But I guess in our game, it's all a matter of perspective, right? You can, depending on how you feel and which side you want to be on, there's no real good guy.
No, I mean, even the best good guy is still going to have gray area to take issue with. I mean, pirates are pirates, right?
Yeah, and it's a difficult world, right? So being 100% good in that world will probably not get you very far.
Exactly right.
So while we're talking,
Pirates are bad people, confirmed. It's confirmed. They're going to make us play as bad people. Let's boycott. I don't think they'll need our help to damage sales. I think they've got that handled. Oh man, it's such a bummer, dude, because I think that there's parts of this that could be really cool. But they just are really struggling to make it exciting. Let's go 1.5 speed. They're going to walk us through the outpost, and then we'll be free of this.
We just arrived at our final destination, our third outpost called the Peloton. I'm going to show you a little bit how that place looks because it looks quite amazing. But I also I would like to ask you a bit more about NPCs in the game in general and like vendors and...
Yeah, so we have vendors or hawkers, you might call them, who are the people who are really going to sell you all the different things in the world that you're able to buy and consume, and there is many. I mean, when it comes to ingredients for upgrading your ship, things to feed your crew, things for upgrading your weapons, upgrading your appearance, all those kinds of things you're going to get through hawkers, as well as the ability to take on new contracts, new opportunities, maybe even pay off factions. Like, for example, if we had an ongoing feud with the Confederation of Iguana based on our plunder earlier, we could potentially pay off somebody at an outpost like this who's related to that faction. But in addition to those characters, we also have pirate kingpins in our world. And so I mentioned John Skurlock a minute ago. He's one of the first pirate kingpins that players are going to meet. And he really stands as an example of the kind of kingpin the player is going to want to become.
Cool. So I like that you said he's one of the first, because I know there's more. I know we can't talk about it yet, but I know there's more. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I also believe that when you start engaging with those kingpins, they will look at you based on your reputation. They will look at you based on your actions, and depending on that, you might get different contracts.
Absolutely. I mean, the whole world of Skull and Bones is about infamy, and so the player really starts as an outcast, and they want to rise and become an infamous kingpin. And so those contracts and those relationships you're going to build with other kingpins are going to grow and change based on your infamy in the world. And actually, one of the things I'm really proud of is the whole world of Skull and Bones is very reactive. So the actions the player does, the infamy they gain, the player
Thank you.
Phil Spencer donated $49.99 through Super
Phil?
Chat. You better buy and play all of my games this year, Luke, or else, and Starfield will be the greatest thing to touch this earth.
Phil, thanks, buddy. Wow. Phil, thank you. What a guy. What a guy. $50 for one. That's very, very generous. Thank you, Phil. And I'm sure that that's the case. I mean, and I know better than to question you. I mean, man, that one night we had in Pykonos. Oh man, the Pykonos Island. I think that's what they were called. I don't know. I had so much champagne, I can't remember. But I know better than to not say yes to you. So absolutely, absolutely. Appreciate you, my friend. Thank you for the $49.99. And Starfield will be the greatest thing to ever touch this earth, I'm sure. But you can't land on Earth. I don't actually know if that's been confirmed or disproven. Like, they say you can return to what I think it's called the old neighborhood is what they call it in the game. So you can return back to this solar system, including Mars. They showed Mars because they showed the Curiosity rover in one of the trailers. So you can go to Mars, but they haven't confirmed that you'll be able to go to Earth. So who knows? I mean, it might be that Earth is like, maybe they blew it up or it's desolate now or something, and that's why humankind left. I don't know. They'll probably do something because I don't think they want to try to recreate the planet Earth. So should be fine. I'm sure something happened. Yeah, well, I mean, just put it in perspective of like game development. If you can go to Earth and Earth even slightly resembles Earth of today, then that's a nightmare. I mean, they'd have to recreate the continents. They'd have to try to come up with the proper balance of biomes and stuff. It's miserable. Why would they do that? Instead, they can just have it be like, oh, Earth hasn't been inhabited in a long time, and now it's just one giant ocean or one giant desert in the vague shape of the continents that used to be there. Or maybe it blew up. Maybe an asteroid hit it and it's blown up. Because Mars, like, nobody knows the topology of Mars accurately, so they can make like a 1/3 scale Mars, and you can just go travel around and then, oh, it's red and rocky. Yep. And that's it. You know, they don't need to be too precise with that. Since they are pushing Skyrim for 12 years, how long will they push Starfield? Well, they've said that their goal is to have basically this like this system with the planets, because there's 1,000 planets to explore, and he said many of them will be empty for modders to play with. So they're gonna have things where like you can download a mod, which is this planet is now the pirate planet, and it's like all ocean, but you can fly your ship around, and it's like treasure planet. You know, that's what they're doing. So they're going to do stuff like that. That's going to be pretty cool. You land on the Earth and you find Fallout. Can you imagine you land on Earth and then they just copy and pasted Fallout 3's quest line, and so it just starts? That would be funny. So they're going to do something like that, but they're going to milk it for a long time. And as we saw with that Maddie video we looked at earlier this week, actually, I think it was, they're going to do all sorts of stuff with the payable mods, the buyable mods. So we're going to see a lot of stuff like that for sure. They're going to milk it. Because, I mean, after Starfield, we probably are not getting Elder Scrolls for another 4 years. Then we might get another Fallout. And after that, we might get another Starfield game. So, like, no matter how you split it, it's probably at least a decade before we see another entry in Starfield. Realistically, I will almost be 40 years old the next time we get Starfield, another Starfield game. I will probably be planning for Lachlan to go to college around the time we get the next Starfield entry. How insane is that? You can't think about it. Yeah, it'll break your brain. Just stop it. Just shut up, Luke. I don't want to think about it. Stop that right now. Yeah, you're making me feel so old. Well, I mean, it's also like, no matter how you split it, all of these games will kind of have that vibe. Grand Theft Auto 5 launched in 2013. So it's been a very, very long time. All of these games take forever to launch. It's luckily we have such a steady flow of big releases that it doesn't feel like such a dry spell in between releases, but it's still a lot. I mean, by the time we get Grand Theft Auto 5 or Grand Theft Auto 6, will probably have been about 11 to 12 years since the last one. And by the time we get the next Red Dead game, if we ever get that, they might be done with it. Who knows? They might go to a different IP. But if they ever go back to it, it's probably going to be about a decade to 15 years after we got the last one. Like, it's already been almost 5 years since Red Dead 2. Luke thinking they're making Starfield in our lifetime is funny. Sorry. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Oh, man. We've been going about 4.5 hours. That's pretty solid for us. I am about to pee my pants, so I will call it there, my friends. We will be back on Monday, so make sure to keep an eye out for that. I'll be making the stream events early, so you guys can hit the notify me button on all of those. Make sure to go watch the new video on Ubisoft and their situation and everything that's going on. And I appreciate every single one of you, all of the new subs, all of the new members, the donators, everybody who's so generous. Phil Spencer, Extra Outcome, Johnny, Matthew, Rari, Alphatron, Phil, Luke, Rocky for becoming a member again, Vexner, and Disco Cobra. All of you guys, very, very generous donations. I really appreciate every single one of you. You guys have a great weekend. Stay safe out there. Hugs and kisses. Much love. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye. He took my thing.